Hello and welcome to Broken Entertainment. So today I was watching a video by Carrow Brown. She's a writer on YouTube, and I'll put the link down in the description below. But she asks the question. She kind of talks about crowdfunding. Is it the future of publication? Essentially, self-publishing in particular. And she brings up some interesting points that I kind of want to address because it's been a topic on this channel before. I've done videos about, do we crowdfund books? How do you crowdfund books? And I want to start with a statistic about Kickstarter's successful publication numbers in terms of books, not comic books, not other entertainment media, but books, novels, that kind of thing. They're very low. The successful campaign percentage is about 22%. And it's very low compared to a lot of other Kickstarter categories, including stuff like the publication of comics and what have you. So the question is, can we do it? Is it viable? And how do you get it done? Now, in Carrow Brown's video, she mentions some people who have been very successful. She mentions Brandon Sanderson. She mentions Eric July. She mentions Keanu Reeves. Now, two of those are comics, and one of those is novels. And I want to kind of separate those two out because comics have a much higher successful publication rating on Kickstarter and Indiegogo than novels. And it's not just because of the people involved, although that is a part of it. The thing about comics is they've been doing this whole Kickstarting thing successfully for a much longer period of time. It became a major movement starting around 2017. And you got a lot of people pushing out independent books who are very good at doing it. They're very good at the marketing. They're very good at creating the books. And they have their own followings. Now, some of them have very large following. Well, not exceptionally large by YouTube standards, but large followings on YouTube. And some of them do not. And the reason that comics are able to do this is they're very easy medium to promote on Kickstarter. There's a lot of people looking to fill that need where they're like, man, I really want a comic, but the DC's just not very good anymore. Marvel's not very good anymore. And you see this stuff on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and it's easy to make exciting. Here's pictures of the art. Here's some of the lines. Here's different covers that you can buy into. If you buy this many, you get this. If you do this level, you get this other stuff. And here's a bunch of stuff that comes with it. And books are like, here's the book. Please help. Right? And I've looked at a lot of these novel Kickstarter and Indiegogo attempts, and a lot of them are more or less, here's my book, please send help. And it's because it's not easy. How do you do an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter for a novel? And you don't want to limit yourself to Indiegogo and Kickstarter, right? You want it on Amazon or some other platform of a similar nature. You want physical books. So how do you reward your backers in ways that don't go to the public, or maybe don't go to the public right away? These are all considerations. And then you don't have that sexy, here's all my awesome artwork. You just have the book. And you can get a PDF file. Usually this is what it comes down to. Here's a PDF file. If you do this tier, you get the PDF file, and you get or not the PDF file, that would be comics. Here's the ebook. If you do this tier, you get the ebook and paperback. If you do this tier, you get ebook, paperback, and like a bookmark. If you do this tier, you get the hardcover. And it's just not that interesting, and it's not the fault of the creator. It's just, how do you, if you think about a lot of successful Kickstarters, what do they have in common? They're visual. Because you see this awesome product, and when you see a book, you're like, that's cool, but tell me about it. What makes me want to buy this book? When you go to the bookstore, you pick it up, you read the back, you might flip through a few pages. When you go to Amazon, there's preview pages. You don't really have that on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And, maybe that's something people could put on there. It's an approach you could take. I think for these people to be successful, if you want to be successful crowdfunding a novel, one of the things you have to do, you have to answer that question. How do I make this appealing on Kickstarter and Indiegogo? How do I give rewards to my backers that you're not going to be able to turn around 2 months later and get from Amazon? And I've thought about this question myself. When you want to go the crowdfunding route, the first question is, how do I make a campaign that's going to work? So we'll get into Brandon Sanderson's campaign because I think it's kind of a good start into the roads of making Kickstarters and Indiegogos for novels that have an appeal to them outside of just, here's a book, buy it. And he does it in a very different way, and I think that's an option. I think it's something to consider. But we'll get into that later. What I want to get into here is this question that she's asking. So I'll go ahead and play the video, and we'll go from there.
And I got mixed thoughts about that too, obviously, because in order for us to be successful, we have to go through these channels. But then, like I don't really know the proper way to do it outside of just trying to build up a fan base organically and whatever platform is like the best for you. And one of the most daunting things, and I would love to have your feedback on this, one of the most daunting things that I always take into account when I'm thinking about publishing or moving forward with like putting my own stories out in the world is the fact that in the course of one day of publication, there's at least 5 years worth of reading that comes out, and that's just in one day, right?
So she's making the point, a lot of stuff comes out every day in publishing. Probably significantly more, I would hazard to guess, than in comics. That's part of it. The other question she's asking here is, how do you make these successful? Beyond, how do you make it interesting on Kickstarter and Indiegogo for people who are looking? Well, she talks about building a following on social media, on YouTube, what have you. And that's a big part of it. Certainly, it helps get your marketing out there. People do word of mouth. They get excited. They talk to their friends. They say, hey, I follow this person on YouTube. They do this awesome stuff. Come check out their book. I'm going to get it. I think you should look at it too. The problem is, first of all, it takes a very long time to do. It can take, she talks about, I think at one point in the video, 2 years. Yeah, it can take more than that. There's people on YouTube I know of who didn't get into the bigger tiers of numbers, so the 100,000 plus. 4 to 10 years on some of them. And so, you think, okay, well, I'm going to do that while I'm writing. And that's definitely a viable option. That's definitely a route to consider, and I would certainly recommend doing it. The problem is, you can build this following, but it doesn't translate necessarily into sales. And it'll give you some, and it'll give you some hype. She talks about Eric July, and he has all these followers, and so they went out and they got very excited, and they supported him when he got attacked by buying more of his books and so on and so forth. Well, he also showed up on a major news channel a couple of times, I believe. There's an article, and then he did an interview. So his name really got out there. He's also playing into a market with need, right? Comics. Where you're seeing traditional publishers fail over and over and over again in terms of what they're putting out into the world. But the numbers on it, and there's not a hard statistic for it, but you can pretty much guess that a third or less of an audience on social media is going to buy into a book or a product that the person on social media is selling. If you want to try this Kickstarter out, you definitely want to build an audience, but you got to understand that audience isn't 1,000 people. It's not 2,000 people. It's probably 40, 50, 100,000 people. And you're going to want support from within the AuthorTube community. So the things you need to do, you need to build your social media presence. You need to build connections within the AuthorTube community. And then you gotta market like hell. Because you can't just put it out there and expect people to flock to it. And then you gotta figure, what about this is interesting enough? Look at this. This is easy to see where people are going, okay, yeah. Because you've got pages, right? Artwork, pretty artwork to look at. That lures people in and says, oh yeah, I'm interested to see what's going on with that. I want to look at that. What you don't have in a book is that. So it gets difficult. And you come back to Carrow Brown and she's saying, well, is this the future? Is crowdfunding the future of self-publishing? And how do you go about it? How do you get your name out there? How do you become successful? Basically through a lot of hard work, which you're already going to have to do to self-publish anyway. And you need to build connections, all this stuff I've already talked about. But you're going to need more than all of that. You're going to need support from other people pushing your product, saying, hey, check out this book. And then ultimately, I think you need to draw in more than your support crowd. You need to draw in more than the people that push it on YouTube. You need to draw in people that go to Indiegogo or Kickstarter, wherever you do it, and just, go to the categories, go to writing and publishing. Here's the hard truth. 6%, 1%, 25%, 205, 7%, 41%. Look at all these. So here's what I would recommend too. Don't use Kickstarter, because Kickstarter is all or nothing. It either succeeds or it fails. Use Indiegogo. Be upfront. Say, if this doesn't publish, I'm still going to use the money, and I'm going to put that money towards self-publishing. Because then at least you're able to raise funds to pay for some of your costs, and you can go ahead and go forward with your book as professionally as possible with a little bit of help. Otherwise, you go Kickstarter, good luck. Well, let's go to one of the successful ones. That's audiobook. Here we go. And by successful, I mean it has a reasonable amount of money. So they got a trailer. They talk about it. They get interviewed. They have different pictures from these projects in World War II, etc. And what do you really got? A wall of text. This is the problem, right? This is the problem we're all facing, is how do you make this wall of text, how do you make that as interesting as the comics have it? You do something akin to what Brandon Sanderson has done. So the difference with Brandon Sanderson and every other one I've seen for novels, and also for comic books, it's not one book. It's a subscription, effectively, for 4 books, released periodically. That strategy gives you something that's not just, help me get my book published. It's, you give me your time and money, and I'll not give you 1 book. I'll give you 3. I'll give you a whole trilogy. I'll give you a quadrilogy, whatever it is. And I will release those months apart from one another so that you have time to read and digest one, and then you get the other one, and then you get the third one. Because a lot of readers, a huge amount of readers, are saying, okay, well, this author's writing a trilogy, so I'm not going to buy anything until the whole thing comes out because I want to make sure it's done. Well, if you have Kickstarter and Indiegogo and you say, look, this is the plan, this is what you're going to get, they know that you're planning to finish that and that you're not going to stop because you didn't do enough sales because you've already got the money. So there's that reassurance for the reader. And you're filling a need for readers, which is more books, and you're offering a unique service. You're saying, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you X amount of books for X amount of money over X amount of time. That's what Brandon Sanderson did. Now, Why was he successful? Was it just that? No. Obviously, Brandon Sanderson is Brandon Sanderson. He's got a gigantic following. But this is what you've got to do. You've got to offer something that makes your crowdfunding interesting. Because just going out there and saying, here's my book, and providing a wall of text and an interview, You know, most people see a wall of text and they go to the next page. Quite frankly. Some of that's formatting. But you've got to look for that interesting, unique way to do it. You've got to get those connections. You've got to build an audience. These are all interconnected things. You can't do it just based on one. Don't just go out there and say, I'm going to do Kickstarter. Everybody's doing Kickstarter. They're very successful. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to do it. Your numbers are going to be very low. And there are people you've never heard of that have just gone out and they've done a Kickstarter. And what is the Kickstarter? It's like they like plead half the time. Well, help me get my novel out there. People want to get something in return. And that thing can't just be, here's my book. Because ideally, you're going to get published and you're going to go online and have it on Amazon or some other platform where people can go buy it. And then the Kickstarter person's like, well, what's it matter if I backed you early or not? What am I getting in return on my investment? Because that's what it is. So you've got to find those answers if you're going to crowdfund. And I do believe crowdfunding is going to play a major role in publishing in the future. But I don't think we've seen that successful format yet that comics has. Other than through Brandon Sanderson. And it's gonna take a lot of work. None of the people who did successful comics were people nobody had ever heard of before. So it's hard work. The answer is hard work. The answer is more than what she's saying, which is build an audience. You've got to have something and fill a need. You've got to have something that's different. You've got to have something that's not just, here's a book, please buy it. You've got to say, here's what you get. Now that can be, here's a subscription service. That can be, hey, look, I went out and got different covers done, and if you pay this much, you can get, these are the cover options you can have. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to get these done. And so somebody might have a unique cover that you don't put out on Amazon. That's an interesting thing you can do. You can say, you fund this level and you get this and this, and you can get the unique cover, and then you can get, whatever else. This is the kind of work you have to put in just to the crowdfunding part. So it's hard work. It's a lot of work. It's a work in progress, I think, because the self-publishing industry is itself a work in progress, because so many people for so long have written first drafts, given it zero attention from other eyes, done very little editing, and just thrown it out there, and now everybody thinks it's crap. And that's not true. Self-publishing is not crap. It's not the people who can't make it, although a lot of people throw crap out there. There's a lot of people that are good. They're going out there, but they're drowning in the sea of other stuff. So you got to make yourself unique. And I personally, you can do it the slow way, and you're going to do it the slow way either way. Understand that. This is not a one-year prospect. But I do believe the key above all of it is it's got to be something more than just a book. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're funding your book, but you've got to fund other things with it too and say this is what you're going to get. Then people can get kind of an interest, especially people who just come to the page blank, right? And don't present yourself as I'm begging you to help me fund this book that I can't get out any other way. Because that's what it sounds like, right? When you looked at those campaigns where it was like, help me fund my book. Help me publish my first book. It makes it sound like you're not good enough to get published, so you're just begging people for money so that you can do it. So there's different ways you can get crowdfunded, you can build platforms, or you can go the reverse, where you write first, then you get a crowd, then you build a platform, then you crowdfund. Or you can not crowdfund at all, And if you don't have the money, then that's fine. You're just going to have to work really hard at making it as professional as possible. Because if you look professional and you have a easily searchable, interesting title and a good-looking cover, those things alone are going to elevate you above. So there's just some thoughts. Let me know if you've had any experience doing any of this down below in the comments. And if you liked the video, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. Ring the bell for notifications, and I will see you next time.